Good evening, folks. I'm finally on time with one of these. I got the bugs worked out on the front end. Yeah. I'm so stupid. My God. I have fun. Stupid for no reason. Anywho, what is good with y'all tonight? I told myself I'm gonna stop getting coffee to do these. Y'all don't understand. Whenever I'm trying to read like scripts or principles, and again, I don't try to get anybody to believe me, but it's like when you're working through this perspective that I function through. Imagine it like a pair of like magic space goggles. I don't know, and you see all of these things whipping past you at the speed of light, and you have to learn how to dial in. You have to learn how to focus intently so that you can describe as many things that are passing by you as you possibly can. And it's like I've been using caffeine as a means to sort of help me dial into doing these in a live format. Especially talking to an audience and no one, because you can go off on so many different tangents because, it's magic goggles. Like if you could see behind if you had x-ray glasses that let you see behind a city wall, trying to describe everything that's happening in the city to people who aren't, I don't know, inside the city or who don't have access to the same, vision that's been afforded to you. There's so many things to describe. Like, there's so many different levels to describe that it's like everything is whipping past so fast that dialing in, it can be pretty tough sometimes. So for the time being, I've been drinking coffee, but I want to get out of the habit of that because I don't need it. I just hyper-focus. But hyper-focus in itself, man, is really draining. It takes its toll. It all takes its toll. Because this body wouldn't build... and I'm not going to say that because it's like, obviously, whatever caused this to be as it is, understood what it was doing on a much better level than I do. But sometimes this body doesn't seem equipped to... It's like the hardware doesn't seem like it's equipped to manage the software. Like it's a huge program. And you're just sitting here like, damn, it takes up a lot of memory. So you boost it where you can and you get it out where you can. Anywho, I am done chatting about this. Today's subject, what are we talking about today? Why you can't change anyone's perception of you or in general, and more importantly, why no amount of arguing or reasoning with a person can change their feelings and beliefs. All right? So this is a mechanical issue. Everything that I describe to you is always going to trace back to mechanism. It's biomechanical. Again, humans, we're basically an offshoot or an offset of parasitism. We're basically a parasitic species. Why it's important to understand that is because parasitism has its own system of rules, or its own mode of rules, which are fundamentally divorced from how things work in natural systems or systems that are based on natural organization. So the intelligence of parasites is different than the intelligence of, natural organisms. You know what I'm saying? How a virion performs in your body is going to be fundamentally different from how, a regular cellular building block of your body would perform. The virus is going to have its own proclivities. It's going to have its own ways for making sense of its context and things of this nature. And those ways for making sense of things, they're not going to match how things perform within the actual bodily environment. So in order to understand why humans are the way they are, which is what humans need to understand prior to trying to create real autonomous AI, you need to understand why you want AI and how your mind works and what you're basically trying to cast into entities that are not limited by or to your physical, frailties and whatnot. You need to understand how parasitic intelligence works, why you prioritize things in the way that you do, and what happens when, I don't know, you try and cast that same type of intelligence into something that is stronger than you. So, or that doesn't suffer from your limitations, that can calculate faster than you and create faster than you and repair itself faster than you. You might want to slow your roll a bit until you understand the mechanism behind viral parasitic intelligence, because you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot on that one. But anyway, back to the point, the subject at hand. Why it's impossible to change anyone's feelings or beliefs, regardless of how well reasoned you are, or, how do I say that? How intently you argue at them. Okay? So, and you have to forgive me. It's like, again, we're just catching up, it's dialing in. But here's what it is. All right, so what you have to do is you have to understand what this is at a mechanical level. Let's start off with a few basic concepts. We'll start with the inner story and or the identity, right? The identity is the inner story. It's basically, the identity is the story the individual actor tells themselves about the world around them and their place and value within it, okay? The identity, it is comprised of several things. It's comprised of meanings and symbols, beliefs, stories, habits, practices, attitudes, actions, outlooks, and behaviors, and social treatments and effects, e.g. tattoos and the types of clothes that you adorn yourself in. It's basically an amalgamation of all the things that sum to form who you are as an individual. That is your identity. It's your inner story. And you see, the thing is, you go, well, hold on, we got some people joining in. Brother Charles Wright, I might not change your mind. You can't plead ignorance. Okay, we'll get into that in just a bit, but the identity, again, it is a story the person tells themselves about the world around them and their value and place within it. All right, so look at it like this. If you think of society as a field, your identity is basically your social economic location within society as a field. It is the temporal spatial vantage point you occupy within a given social strata, if that makes sense to you. So everything through the perceptive lens, it works in a sort of hierarchical fashion. Everything ties to authority, and everything is seen in sort of a linear directional mode wherein you're either up on the scale or up on the ladder or down on the ladder. And everyone wants to go up, and everyone is afraid to go down. And I want you to keep that point in mind. Everyone wants to go up, and everyone's afraid to go down. Right? So when you're talking to someone about something that conflicts with their identity, in essence, what you're doing is telling them that they should have their value lowered within the given context. This is why people are so afraid to be wrong. People are so afraid to be wrong because they're afraid of being devalued. And this goes back to the parasitic mind. The parasitic mind, it thinks in terms of consumption. So what I was talking about in my last podcast was you have, in nature, you have these two very basic states. In reality, there are these two very basic states that come together to form balance. You have bonding and you have separation. Through human languages, or at least through the English language, those translate into love and fear. All right? Love is bonding. Fear is distance or separation. When you love something, you feel bonded to it. You want to be close to it. When you fear something, you want to keep distance and separation between you and this thing. And it doesn't just stop there. It actually, bonding is male, and it's synonymous with matter. Okay. And then there's fear, which is inherently female, and that's synonymous with distance and space. And I know that sounds kind of it's kind of wonky and out there, but it's actually symbolized with even within the sexual organs. So male occupies the actual space, female negative space. Okay? These are universal principles that extend well above and beyond our species. They extend above and beyond the species of the universe that we're actually structural building blocks belonging to. And I'm going to get into that in a different level, but in a different episode. But the main reason why I even mention that is because everything starts off with love and fear, and the balance between the two is bonding. No, I'm sorry, I said that the wrong way. The balance between bonding and separation, or the sum of bonding and separation, is balance. This is what eternal order emerges from. And I'm sorry I messed up that language there. But it's like balance is when both are in sync the way that they should be. Okay? Through the parasitic mind, bonding gets turned into acquisition and fear gets turned into loss. Bonding becomes acquisition and fear becomes loss. Whenever you're in a social context and someone devalues your perceived worth within the given context, guess what? You fear loss. You perceive someone trying to take from you. You perceive someone making you less. Which is why it's impossible to change someone's opinion of you. Why it's impossible to change someone's feelings and beliefs. Because what you need to understand is when people are trying to defend their feelings and beliefs, what they're actually doing is trying to preserve their inner story. They're afraid of their inner story taking a hit. They're afraid of their inner story losing value. Because their inner story, again, is their place within society. It necessarily translates into how deserving they are of comforts, degrees of freedom, satisfaction, and rewards. People are scared of being wrong. They're scared of being wrong because being wrong threatens their inner story. Threatening their inner story necessarily translates into robbing them of value. Robbing them of value means they'll be able to consume less. Being able to consume less necessarily equates in the perceptive mind, in the parasitic mind, to starving and death. So when people fight you tooth and nail to be right about shit they don't understand, they're not defending the subjects they're fighting you on. They're defending their own value and worth by proxy of the meanings, symbols, and beliefs they've internalized and seek to self-actualize through. They're fighting for their lives, which means regardless of how much sense you make, you don't have the power to change someone's mind. You don't, because you're not changing their mind. You're changing their identity. You know why so many people are scared of being around people who are not like them? The phenomenon from whence tribalism emerges. You know why everybody likes to be around people who remind them of themselves? Because when you're around people who reflect your inner story back to you, you feel safe. Who there is threatening your value? No one. Who there is telling you, by proxy of simply being, that you don't deserve access to comforts, degrees of freedom, satisfaction, and rewards. You like being around people who tell you that you're the good guy, that you deserve good things, and that anyone who isn't like you, who doesn't hold your values or look like you want to hear them tell you, you want the people around you, those who bring you comfort, to tell you that whoever's not like you is bad and doesn't deserve comforts, degrees of freedom, satisfaction, and rewards. In fact, anyone who isn't like you, they deserve to be punished, blamed, and ostracized, humiliated. That's the way it works at a mechanical level. Your feelings and beliefs are immaterial to that fact. So this is why you can't change anybody's mind. You know, I have a lot of people who go back and forth with me on many posts. You have a lot of cowardly ideologues. And by cowardly, I mean they're afraid of reality. They're afraid of reality and anyone performing in reality who doesn't reflect the value of their identity back to them. So they come along and they see someone like me performing in the way that I do, and they have to attack. They have to humiliate me and bring me down and make me fit into their inner story. They have to give me meanings that necessarily confine me in the way of value and capability to labels that they've accepted from the social narrative. Oh, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. Because they're trying to protect their identity. They're trying to protect their value and worth. You're not what you think you are. You're ding, 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 ding. They don't even know why they're doing it. They don't know why. They just know something is there making them feel uncomfortable. Something is there threatening their life and their sense of deserving, their entitlement to attention from others and comforts, degrees of freedom, satisfaction, and rewards. You threaten me, Donald King, but I don't know how to deal with that, so I have to attack you. I have to tear you down and put you in your place. I have to make you subject to my inner story. I go back and forth with these people a lot in my threads. Not because I have to or even want to try to change their inner story. I'm not trying to change their inner story, but instead create a flowchart of information that they may be able to go back and access and peruse when they've calmed down some. You know the only way to bring someone out of the inner story? You don't have the power to, but you know what does have the power to? Reality. Reality brings people out of the inner story. Reality is, regardless of whether or not you accept it as being a living, sentient, self-aware system, it is what exists mutually independent of idealism. Reality has the power to bring people out of the inner story. Thing is, most people are not dialed into reality. They're so barricaded in these cocoons of meanings and symbols and all this aggression and narcissism and competition that they can't hear reality. Every now and again, you come across something that snaps people out of it. We're having some issues, apparently with some lagging. I wonder why I'm going through that. Okay. So anyway, oh wait, we got some more down here. Armando Morero, identity is a weird thing since it's mostly created against your will by parents, siblings, friends, teacher, television, social media. We don't even name ourselves. Finding our true will takes hard work. That is that's perfectly stated. The identity, it starts off as a seed. Someone, and it's built up by our respective formative environments, and it's handed off to us. It's handed off to us, and we get to running with this baton someone has handed us. We got dropped in the middle of a race. And someone is like, "Hey, catch up to and surpass the ones in front of you. Stay ahead of the ones behind you. But no matter what, You keep running. And that's what our inner story is basically like. It's like a baton we got handed in a relay race, and we don't even know why we're running. We don't even know the real value of this baton. We never actually stopped to study it to see whether or not we have any inherent value outside of this baton and our desire to surpass others with it. All we have is these stupid little identities, and they become these prized possessions, these things we value above everything else around us, including reality itself. And in protecting this little baton, this inner story, we never pay attention to the amount of damage we do just trying to stay ahead of those behind us and get ahead of those who are in front. Identity, the identity, it's bad. It's a story, because when all is said and done, you have to remember the identity is just a story. Stories aren't real. It doesn't matter how many people agree with the story. A story can never be real. A story is not reality. It is simply a story. And whoever has the story, where they're going to change it whenever they decide to tell it. I'm in a situation, or I've been in several situations in my life where I've done everything in my power to be the best person that I could be to people. The very best person that I could be. And somehow they figured out how to make me a villain in order to preserve their inner story. They figured out how to make me a villain in order to preserve their own goodness. Regardless of what I did to help, regardless of what I did to uplift, somehow they created a myth in their mind that I didn't have the power to change, that I didn't even have access to. And again, it's like, I don't want to make this specifically about me, because it can apply to anyone. We look at this past presidency, or the one that's about to be over, and you have all these people who watched a man lie consistently lie, and just demonstrate the most immoral practices. And I mean, there were recordings of him talking about assaulting women. And somehow in their mind, in their feelings and beliefs, they still made him out to be a good guy. The inner story is fundamentally divorced from reality. It can make a bad guy good and a good guy bad. And depending on how honest or dishonest you are, you never know the difference between reality and the story you tell yourself, which is psychosis. That is psychosis. Did terrible things, said terrible things, mocked the infirmed and the handicapped, like just demonstrated outwardly, I am not a good character. But in people's inner story, and within the system of agreements that they shared as a group, and then also with the agreements that they made with themselves, they're like, no, he's really good, he's really good, he's really good. And then it's like, if you go back to even like Jesus's day, Jesus only did good. He only worked to help people and uplift people. I mean, like, according to the stories, he healed people. And at the end of the day, they mocked him and murdered him. For what? Because their inner stories wouldn't allow them to conceive of the fact that someone who wasn't like them wasn't good. Everybody's the good guy in their inner story. Everybody's the good guy in their identity. The identity is like a fucking movie. And you're the star. And you're a badass. or a badass waiting to be a badass in training. Everybody's looking at you and you're the center of everything. You're important, and everyone's either envious of you or waiting to be envious of you. Let's go back down here. Ooh, let me see. Armando Romero. Okay, cool. You do make very good points. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I try to. Let me see. Being wrong helps me grow since I only have a piece of the puzzle, not the puzzle. Armando, perfect. Yes. I love being wrong too. I actually love being wrong. A lot of people think that it's like I only want to be right, but no, I look for opportunities to be wrong because I never want to settle on the idea that I can't be. If you're not wrong and you can't find reasons and ways to be wrong or ways to improve, then you're not growing. If you're not growing, you might as well be dead. Brother Absurd. Tribalism a shared identity? Yes! Brother Absurd, the word! Yes. Tribalism is sort of a shared identity, but this is the funny thing about tribalism. Tribalism is real circumstantial because it's bound to fracture at some point. So think about it like this, and this goes for every group. So I could easily point out white supremacist groups. You know, they start off as one group, white power, and then after they get their white power, then all of a sudden, then you have subsets among this sort of broad sweeping idea. The same concept, it applies to Christianity, it applies to Islam, it applies to Judaism, it applies to Hinduism, it applies to any sort of idea that collectivizes a group of people together. They're tribal at first, us against the world, but then when there is no world to be against, us against each other. It's so fucking temperamental. It's dumb. Tribalism is stupid. Everybody's like, because it only lasts but for so long. It's only a matter of time. Like here's the thing. Even if okay, so I use the white supremacist model simply because it is it's been very popular within the last few years. But even if you got rid of all the colored people, the competitive, narcissistic assholes that comprise that movement will find a way to turn against each other for supremacy. Narcissism, aggression, competition, they're triune. When you get rid of all the rivals, you create new rivals because you don't run out of the desire or the need to aggress or to feel superior to others or to compete. So even if they got their way and got all the darkies out of the country, they turn on each other in a matter of time because the problem isn't the outgrouper, it's the mindset. It's a shared identity, but only for a time. It's only a shared identity as long as there's someone to define self and group against. If there's no one to define the group against, the narcissistic, aggressive, competitive assholes turn on themselves. That's why there are over 40,000 denominations of Christianity. 40,000! Does that make any sort of sense whatsoever? It's a book this fucking thick. It's a book this thick. How do you get 40,000 denominations out of that? By putting it in the hands of cowardly ideologues who are narcissistic, competitive, greedy, but more than greedy, aggressive. God, figurehead of society. Let's see what else we got here. Hey, Torsba. Torsab. Thank you. Have a great day, my brother. Yo. But let's dial this in real quick because it's like, again, this can go off on several tangents. The main thing that you need to understand is that you can't change people's mind because you're not actually changing their minds. What you're doing whenever you introduce new information to them is changing their identity. When you change their identity and the meanings and beliefs they've already internalized and built their identity upon, it's like you're threatening their lives. People can create entire versions of you in their mind that have absolutely nothing to do with who you are or how you perform in reality. Again, this is the reason why I go through all of these long drawn out threads of people, because I want to document as much of what they say as I possibly can. And the reason for doing this is to create a log in reality that people can go back and read through. Create a log. You said this, and that. And it goes back to the point that I was making earlier. The only thing that you can do, you don't have the power to change someone's inner story, but you know what does? Reality. I don't argue against people. I try to get people to pay attention to and dial into things that they can observe in reality independently of what I'm telling them. I point people to, I explain to people narcissism, the subject of narcissism. Now, I'm describing what I see through the avatar perspective related to this subject and phenomenon. But then I'll go back and I'll relay people to information and studies that support everything that I'm saying. Why? Because the goal isn't to win in the argument against a person who I recognize to be a narcissist in the moment. It's to show them static patterns that have absolutely nothing to do with what I feel or believe. Every single thing that I do is designed to point people's attention in the direction of things that are not limited by or to my inner story or my would-be inner story. That's how it should be. So whenever you see an argument between two people, and this applies to romantic relationships, this applies to familial bonds, this applies to business relationships. Whenever you see an argument, what you're basically watching is two people trying to drag the other into their inner story. It's basically a tug of war of identities. That's what a fucking argument is. Hey, you need to listen to my inner story. No, you need to listen to my inner story. I'm the good guy. No, I'm the good guy. I'm right. No, I'm right. And it's back and forth. It's stupid. People focus on who is right, not what is right. When you're trying to get people to recognize and sync up with phenomena and events that can be measured independent from both of the individuals' inner stories, then you're trying to get them to dial into reality. But it's like, think about it like this, and I tell you, reality is the only thing that has the ability to interrupt the internal dialogue, the inner story. Reality. Y'all remember 9/11? Y'all remember? Some of y'all might be too young to remember 9/11, but I remember with 9/11. 9/11, you get this story of these terrorist folks flying into and destroying these towers, and then all of a sudden, all the tribalism in America, all the gang shit and all the racism and all the other stuff, it disappeared that fast. And everybody's like, America's strong. Something happened in reality that snapped everybody out of their identity, and all of a sudden they had new meanings. They had new value systems. All of the tribalism fucking disappeared. All the chest thumping and I'm better than this man and I'm better than that man, it disappeared. Why? Because there was a new external threat. There was a new external threat. And then when there was the belief that this new external threat was no longer significant, what happened? Everybody within this small cell went right back to trying to look important and feel superior to the next man and creating tribes and knuckling up against each other. These principles I'm explaining to you, they're not limited by or to any nation or group. They're not even limited to this species. These extend up through the universal scales of plane. Everybody thinks that they're all on one team until they're not. Because inevitably, a narcissistic, competitive, aggressive, cowardly ideologue is going to want more. And when they want more, they want to drag everyone into their inner story wherein they are the good guy and they deserve the most. When they do that, then comes the tug of war between identities. Then comes actual war. And that lasts all the way until there's a new enemy to fight against. It's a stupid system, guys. It's dumb. It makes sense to parasites because it's all they know. When you think from outside that mode, though, you see how stupid it actually is. You can't change people's feelings and beliefs by making sense to them. The only thing you can do is keep pointing them in the direction of reality. And if they're fortunate, and they're not so given to narcissism that they're completely blind to reality, they might, just might, be able to recognize reality and sync up with it. Just maybe. One of the weirdest things about not being able to access someone's inner story is people create a straw man of you in their mind, and they deal with this ideal version of you that they've created who doesn't exist in reality. And they ascribe all these positive or negative things to you. It can happen in a positive way too. You could be in a relationship with a person who treats you like shit. But in this fantasy you concoct in your mind, you could be like, oh no, you just have to know them. They're really good. And there'd be no evidence of it in reality. Like, you can sit here and just look at the list of impacts they made on reality with respect to you, and you'll be like, no, you just don't know. There's goodness in there. There's no evidence to support the claim. But you can make it so if you're dealing with someone in ideal. If you internalize the version of a person that you want to see and that's convenient to your outlook and worldview, if you internalize that and make it part of your identity, if you're the good guy in your identity, then anything you call good is good, regardless of whether or not it's good in reality. Again, going back to Trump. If you see someone as bad in your apperception, in your inner story, if you view someone as bad, they could literally build a house for you. They could wash your feet. They could take care of your kids. They could love you unconditionally, and you'd still find a reason and way to beat on them, or yell at them, or devalue them, or betray them. Because you're not dealing with the real person. You're dealing with an extension of your own identity that you're projecting onto the person. Got to sync up with reality, man. Inner story doesn't have shit to do with what you feel or what you believe. No, I said that wrong. Reality doesn't have shit to do with what you feel or what you believe. The inner story is only about what you feel and what you believe. Let me see. Ooh, brother Armando comes back in. Let me see what we got. Your points about tribalism I agree with. Irish immigrants weren't considered white. Neither were Italians, Hispanics, light-skinned African Americans looked down upon darker ones. Not long after 9/11, some woman told me the English language was being raped by Hispanics and had her fear acknowledged when a Spanish-speaking couple went by. I told her I was Hispanic to no avail. Yeah, that's exactly how it goes, bro. That's exactly how it goes. When people live for the identity, when they live through the identity, regardless of how much sense you make, regardless of how good you are, even good to them, you are not the image they hold in their mind of you. There's nothing you can do to change how they perceive you. The only thing that has the power to intervene there, again, is reality. So you try to direct them towards reality, and you show them lists of things that represent impacts you've made on reality that sort of point to the fact that you're a good individual, or point to the fact that people who are Hispanic are not bad individuals. But she's already made agreements with herself and agreements with the echo chamber she frequents that you must be bad because you're not like her. And no amount of good you do will come along and change the agreement she made with herself in order to protect her perception of self-worth and value. And again, this goes back to parasitism. You can't change someone's mind because at the end of the day, what you introduce to them is not attacking knowledge they have. It's not fixing beliefs they hold. You're threatening their identity. And for ideologues, they can't tell the difference between the identity and the true self. You said I'm wrong. You're trying to kill me. That's how it works. You said I'm wrong. That's why so many people who vehemently identify with racist groups say, I'm not racist. You know why they say I'm not racist? Because they're afraid of that hit to their identity. They're afraid of getting that mark against them, even though they hold the values. I'm not racist. I hate niggers. Yeah. It's dumb. The parasitic mind, it makes you dumb. It makes you think dumb. It makes you perform dumb. The only thing you think of is winning and losing. The only thing you think of is stratification systems and where your rank is within a given social strata. It makes you think hand to mouth. It makes you confuse feeling superior to others with being free. Yo, so we're going to go ahead and start dialing this one in. I'm probably going to come back with another installment of this one because there are some points that I think I blew by. Again, I'm shooting from the hip with this. None of this is rehearsed here. So there are a couple of things that I'm sure that I'm going to be like, oh, I wish I'd have said that. I wish I'd have said that. But in the meantime, you guys already know you can follow me on social media. I am here on Facebook Live, obviously shooting this one. And you guys can follow me on Instagram. You can catch up with me on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, I actually post all these. I actually fly all these videos over. So if there are any of these that you want to go back and check out at a later date, I know that Facebook doesn't keep them in rotation forever, but you know, you can find these all on my YouTube channel. Also, I post content to Medium. I like to write pieces and put them up there as well. If you guys ever get any sort of value out of what I'm doing and you just want to bless your brother with some love, you can always cash at me at Donny King. And also, you can always feel free to join the Patreon family. All proceeds go towards lifting this up or building this up to a larger platform. I want to reach as many people as I can before, you know, this my time in this forum is up. And I want to explain all these principles to you all to the very best of my ability, so far as I can see through this perspective as it's been afforded to me. You need to know all of this shit. You need to understand this shit on a fundamental level. And as a species, you guys are really short on time. Really short on time. But again, this is probably going to be part one. I'm probably going to circle back to this subject because it's a lot to explain about the inner story. It's a lot to explain about the inner story. But again, it's like you can join the Patreon family. I am at Avatar Cycle XIII or Avatar Cycle 13. Yeah, appreciate you. And I love you. And thank you kindly for tuning in. I just want to hit the main points that I was trying to convey in this before I get off here. Playing this identity tug of war. Arguing, where you're trying to subjugate someone to your internal narrative. It's an exercise in futility. Humans see everything through a lens of contest, as do all parasites. They see things through a lens of competition. Everything boils down to winning and losing, which again goes back to the core paradigms of acquisition and loss, which are a bastardization of bonding and separation, or love and fear. All this shit is mechanical. It's mechanical. When you waste all your time barricaded in your identity, it makes you aggressive. It makes you narcissistic. Again, narcissism being an addiction to the identity. And it makes you highly competitive. You can't hear anything you're trying to compete against. You can't understand anything you feel superior to. You can't build with anything you're trying to aggress against. You can't. You got to get out of your inner story. You got to sync up with reality. And I'll leave it on this point. Reality, aside from it being a living, sentient, and self-aware system, which is the phenomenon humans rightfully refer to as God, reality is what exists mutually independent of idealism. All right? That means truth is what is consistent with reality. Honesty is the individual's will and effort to recognize, understand, and sync up with reality and what's happening in reality. Reasoning is using the mental faculties to suss out what is consistent with reality. It follows a chain of causality. If you're not trying to understand what's consistent with reality, it means you're trying to preserve your inner story. If you're not being honest, it means you're trying to preserve your inner story. If you're not trying to know truth and or trying to make truth convenient, something that's convenient to you, then it means you're trying to preserve your inner story, which means you're fundamentally out of sync with reality. Chains of causality, people. This is a chain. It's mechanical. This is not what Donald King says. If you think for 2 seconds and are honest for 2 seconds, you'll arrive at the same conclusions effortlessly. That being said, wait a second, hold on. I'm gonna, brother Armando, let's see. You said, Armando says, so far where I disagree with your insights is your talk of reality. There is, to the best of my knowledge, no one reality. I find that a lot of the time, even when people are speaking the same language technically, it really is like we're speaking different languages to each other. Somebody talking logic, another man speaks in emotion. All right, so I understand your disagreement on the point of reality, because a lot of people, especially humans, they confuse experiences within reality for being reality itself. So your perception of reality is fundamentally separate of reality as a system. Your perception of reality, your experience within reality, is separate of reality as a system. Everybody has separate experiences with reality. However, reality is what it is, regardless of how we experience it or what we feel or believe. You know, at least so far, that's how it's been shown to me. So anywho, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here because I ran a little long, but I appreciate y'all. I love you, and I'll catch you next time. All right.